I shared a clip on the Fractal forum earlier in the week comparing the Triaxis models to my real Triaxis, and listening back to the clip, I can't tell the difference unless I look at the Pro Tools session, and it seems like a lot of people there couldn't tell the difference either. So these models are very much spot on to the originals. However, if you want to dial them in, there are a few tricks and tips which hopefully I can show you in this particular video. I'm playing my SC245 in drop C, going straight into the Axe-FX3. I've got the Triaxis model, which is USA Pre Lead 2 Yellow, so this is meant to be the like Mark II C+ mode in the Triaxis, and for a cab, I'm using this Brit 412, which I've shared on Axchange if you guys want to go and get it. At the stock settings, this is an incredibly underwhelming model. So not a whole lot going on there, but if you've seen my tutorials on the Mark series amps, these things basically work like a Mark series amp, although they do sound different to the 2C+. Like this Triaxis yellow mode definitely has its own character going on. The real secret parameter in here, though, is this preamp presence control, and this maps to the Triaxis presence control. And you'll also notice that there is a presence control for the power amp. A lot of people would use these with like a Mesa 290 or a VHT 252 or something like that, which often had their own presence and like low-end controls. So we do have that built in. It's more than just a preamp model, it's a preamp paired with a power amp. I know for a long time the power amp was based off Cliff's VHT, but I can't remember if it's a VHT or like a Mark series power section anymore. Nevertheless, essentially if you want to get a really cool crunchy high gain sound going on with this, the trick is going to be using this preamp presence control and then the 3-band EQ and then the output EQ in the Axe-FX3. So the Triaxis doesn't have a graphic EQ like a Mark series amp. It has this parameter called dynamic voice, and you can look up online what the different dynamic voice parameters map to on a graphic EQ. Personally, I like this Axe-FX Triaxis better because we've got way more control over the graphic EQ. So my sort of settings for a Mark series chunky sort of tone are always with the bass nice and low. We'll take that one down to 1. The mids low again. If you've seen any of my tutorials before, I sound like a broken record. We're just using these controls to help shape the front end gain. And I like treble at about 7 with the overdrive up. And what I'm going to do is, this is kind of a really good starting point, turn the preamp presence all the way down. Essentially, all the way down is going to correspond to 0 on the real Triaxis presence, and then having the preamp presence at noon, so 0 dB is going to be like 10 on the Triaxis. So again, with the Axe-FX, we can kind of go above and beyond, but if you want to stay authentic, they are the ranges you want to work with for the preamp presence control. And let's do the classic output EQ kind of V thing. I'll start at 6 for 80. I like cutting 240, and I like cutting a lot of 750. This kind of takes that mid-range honk out of it. And then, yeah, we'll boost a bit of this guy, and we'll boost a little bit of 6600, and pretty much immediately you have like a pretty slamming high gain sound going on. Now, the final touch on all of this is using that preamp presence control. So you would basically, the best thing to do with this is like turn it up slowly. If you start with it, say at about 9 o'clock, it gives you this. Which is pretty cool. Personally, I like it somewhere around 9 o'clock. Often, if I'm going to play loud with this, that presence can kind of rip your eardrums off. But if you're recording, you're probably going to want to turn that up to just give you more sizzle and cut in the mix. Alternatively, you can use the power amp presence. If we turn it all the way off, we get this. And as with the Mark Series amps, balancing out input drive and overdrive. You see, I just went straight to 10 with the overdrive, but you could bring that down to 5, and you're going to get a different character as you turn input drive up. Overdrive is a flat neutral gain control, whereas input drive, as you turn it up, kind of makes the amp a bit darker as well, which means you would need to go back and shape the gain a bit with this guy here. If I've got input drive on 10. That's not too shabby at all. There are also models of the lead to green and red models if you want a variation on this. Essentially use the same tricks. There is the Triaxis kind of like recto mode modeled as well as USA Pre-Lead 1. This is not my favorite mode on the real Triaxis. It's not my favorite mode in the Axe-Fx Triaxis. It kind of sounds like this. I like to boost the bass and treble a bit. It's not doing a whole lot for me personally. I much prefer the recto models, but the other mode that I really like that they've modeled is the clean mode. I just essentially treat this like a clean Fender section. So basically turn the bass down a little bit and the treble down a little bit and your input drive to taste, and you get a really sweet, pristine, clean sound. And again, you can play around with the presence control and the treble there. This is a pretty dark sounding guitar, so that kind of turned out pretty dark as well. It gives you a little bit of breakup as you turn the input drive up. But yeah, there is a really quick and dirty guide to the Axe-Fx 3 Triaxis models. Like I said earlier, just treat them like a cool variation of the Mark Series amps. Use the graphic EQ, use the bass, middle, and treble to shape your gain, and use that preamp presence control very, very wisely, because that is kind of the trick to getting these to sound right. Remember, preamp presence at -12 is presence at 0 on the Triaxis. Preamp presence at 0 dB on the Axe-Fx is the Triaxis presence at 10. And if that's not doing enough, you can go beyond it. That's kind of like the shred switch on, I guess, a JP2C or something like that. So very versatile models. I really, really like the USA Pre-Lead 2 Yellow, the 2C Plus mode as a variation to the 2C Plus. I really like the USA 2C Plus Plus in the Axe-Fx 3 as well. We're really spoiled for choices. It's pretty awesome. Yeah, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit subscribe, check out my other tutorials, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.